3, 2, 1. All right, we got Trump hails productive truce talks with Russia, urges Putin to spare Ukrainians. Now, everybody that has been following this over the last year, it's just been like these flip-flop peace deals / oh, well, we won't do it, we will do it, we'll sign it, we won't sign it, you're a little B in Russian, and otherwise just a whole bunch of drama. But this is a war we're talking about, and they say that there's movements forward. I don't believe any of it, but I'll let you guys know what the official narrative is. U.S. President Donald Trump said Friday his administration had been productive talks with Russia about ceasefire in Ukraine, urging counterpart Vladimir Putin to spare Ukrainian soldiers on the front line. Trump envoy Steve Witkoff met Putin late Thursday to lay out the details of a joint U.S.-Ukrainian plan, which envisages a 30-day pause in hostilities between Moscow and Kiev after 3 years of war. Says, quote, we had a very good and productive discussion with Vladimir Putin of Russia yesterday, and there is a very good chance that this horrible bloody war can finally come to an end, Trump said in a post on his Truth Social. Now, sorry, I do have a lot of faith in that people can work out deals and these things, but I don't have a lot of faith in both sides agreeing to these deals. And as far as this goes, if there is a 30-day ceasefire, that's not the end of the war. In fact, experts in Russia that are basically think tanks for the Russian government say that this is not going to end before 2026. Not to mention, even if they do a ceasefire, that's actually a scary, alarming time for if something does happen during that ceasefire, if somebody breaks the ceasefire, then it can escalate even further than where it was. Meanwhile, you have Russia mass-producing weapons, tanks, and even bunkers like there's no tomorrow. I mean, literally no tomorrow. Yeah, we're supposed to believe that it's all going to be good and Ukraine is just going to give up the land and Russia will be happy. I don't think so. But what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below. We're going to talk about all of the news in the last 24 hours in just a moment. Nothing in this show should be considered legal, medical, or financial advice. The views of the callers can differ considerably and do not necessarily reflect my opinion, Dex's opinion, or anyone else who works with the show. You should always do your own research and consult with professionals. The internet is full of fake news, so please take everything with a grain of salt. If you have not already, it helps us out if you end up going through any of our affiliates, and it helps you out if you end up protecting yourself against cybercrime. NordVPN is one of the best and one of the easiest to use. If you do not have a virtual private network, it protects your IP address, which is your online identity, which actually connects to your real address and everything else. It also connects to you. If you know anything about how they are data logging and basically getting your profiles down, you can prevent that by having a VPN. Nord is, again, one of the easiest. Download it. It's like an on switch and off switch. All you have to do. Go to marfooglenews.com/VPN. Not only will you get a giant discount on this, but you will also be helping us. I appreciate your support, and I appreciate everyone that goes through any of our affiliates. Can't say thank you enough. All right, what is going on, guys? It is Adam, aka Marf, and this is Marfoogle TV. Remember, you have a full bibliography of every single article, tweet, video, picture, document over at marfooglenews.com. And remember, you also have Marfia Hot Tips there. So make sure if you have a tip for us, make sure to head over there and give it to us. That fourth tab over is Hot Tips. If you have a close connection with any of the stories that are mentioned today, or a story that is from long ago or that hasn't happened yet, make sure to put your tip there and we will get it out to the public. All right, again, before we get into it, let's bring in my co-host/internet brother, Dex James. What is going on and how are you doing today?
Well, hello, Adam, and hello, Foogle fam. I am doing just fine.
Quick thank you to everybody that ended up supporting in 2024. Thank you, Chris S., Dixie W., Karen D., Joanna H., Paula M., Deborah L., Dean G., and Alita. All right, let's get right into the next story. Ukraine's retreat from Kursk appears to mark end of 7-month incursion into Russia. If you were under a rock for the last 7 months, essentially Ukraine, and possibly, they even thought that special contractors from the U.S. were inside of Russia's borders, holding down this very, sort of lesser populated area. Dex, what is happening now? They're essentially retreating?
Yeah, well, that's at least what's being reported here. They've been retreating, two at a time, running, sometimes up to a mile or more to get across the border. They're not that far in. They're just into, I think they've got Sudza was the town that they were trying to maintain. But it's interesting because you've got on one hand you've got Trump saying that he talked to, or his team, Witkoff talked to Putin and got him to agree to not go after and take out everyone there in Kursk, instead give them an opportunity to survive. And then you've got the Ukrainian general saying that that's, BS. They're not even surrounded. Like as we reported a day or two ago from Russia's point of view, they said they had surrounded them all and there was no escape. And they're saying, no, they're not even surrounded. That's not the case. So the stories are all over the place. I tell everybody, don't believe any of it and just take it all in and sort of try to put some salt all over it and see if you can make it taste good, because it's really it's a psychological game. They're going to put out what they want to put out. They're going to tell us what they want us to hear from whichever side
It
they're
sounds
on.
fake.
It is. It really is. But, Putin did come out and make a statement today saying, yes, they're very bad people because they are considered T's in his group, in his country, for what they did. But we won't, if they're willing to surrender, we'll treat them with dignity and we won't harm them. That was his statement. But he said if they don't surrender, then all games off, as it relates to Kursk.
Now, I actually, there was an important part down at the bottom here about Zelensky on that last story. And going into it, what I mean by fake, I mean, it looks like somebody is creative writing, like they're in creative writing class of how they believe it's going, There's not very much visual proof at all of what has actually been happening. And it's kind of crazy. Usually a war, you see so much coverage of it. But this, you see clips and things on X, but it's almost all the same. It's the drones flying above somebody and then going boom, or it's people taking selfies in front of a tank and then boom. I mean, it is crazy though, because it does show you, if that is the reality of it, that the entire conflict is essentially drones versus people and drones versus buildings and drones versus drones. It's really nuts. But there was a quote down here from Zelensky, and he says he is now doing everything, talking about Putin, he can to sabotage diplomacy by setting extremely difficult and unacceptable conditions right from the start, even before a ceasefire. So you have it there, right? I mean, it's in writing. It's now in the record. Once again, he's saying that, these are unacceptable and that the things that they're trying to put there are never going to be accepted. I mean, this is exactly what every last peace deal has kind of created, is this situation where they're not going to agree to it. There's something that they're, just going to not agree on. And often that happens, but it's never so like every other day. Something is looking like it's going to be good, and then boom, it falls apart. So I don't have too much faith in this newest attempt at ceasefire. They, a lot of people see that, they go, oh, they had a really good and productive talk, and they think, oh, it's about to happen. Or the news will say they're just days away from it. Why do people believe that? Almost every single time it ends up saying, oh, good and productive can be that they were polite, especially when it's coming from Trump. When they say it's a good and productive talk, that could be like, hey, we got along, we laughed, chippered it up, even offered me to go to golf. But that doesn't mean they got anything done. And that's how it would be with anybody. But it's how they phrase things that makes people so at ease. It's all messaging. And don't think that we got a new president that our gov is not putting out a bunch of fake crap. I mean, it's an entire bureaucracy of fake crap and ganda that's being put out. We still have 3-letter agencies involved here. Heck, when they go to do this stuff, last year or the year before, both years, every time you see them negotiating anything with either the Middle East or with Russia, you see Burns, the CIA director involved, or Williams, or any of these guys that are 3-letter agencies. Why do you think that is? Because it's all, big ops. Dex, go ahead.
I mean, if Trump had a bad meeting, do you think he would actually come out and say, man, I had a really bad meeting? I mean, it's just not his nature. He would say the worst meeting ever is a great meeting.
Yeah, and if you by the way, if you ever get a chance to read like The Art of the Deal or any of the book, it is totally him. I mean, the way that he looks at everything. I mean, people used to make fun of that he says everybody is a friend of mine, a friend. You know how that makes the other person feel? There's so many mental things that he has put in there that makes him that salesman. And you can say what you want about the guy, but he is one of like these ultimate salesmen. If you've ever done a sales job, he's that guy that does the top on the board, right? He's always been that guy. That realistically is how I see him. He's the top guy. If he was the car salesman, he'd be at the top. If he was, credit card salesman, he would be at the top. If he was a house salesman, he would be at the top. And it's because the way he lives is formulated around sales. I truly believe this because I have had enough sales positions to know like how that training goes and all the different training you get as a salesperson to see that he implements that into his life and how he actually lives. And now he's implementing it into how he presidents. Saying somebody is your friend, when somebody else sees that in the newspaper, that person he's talking about, even if the person doesn't like him, it's hard not to, when somebody says, hey, that's my friend, it's an endearing thing. And it's saying like, hey, that's my friend. And it makes most people feel good. Just like he says, he's a very smart guy. He's magnificent. He's always pushing people up. And honestly, I don't disagree with that. It's something that I learned very young too. If you put down people, you get more flies with honey rather than, I forget. What is it, Dex? You get more flies with honey rather than vinegar. I think vinegar actually gets more flies, but you guys get what I'm saying. But yeah, and it's like that's how he's been doing this, and but people believe every time that it's said that everything is going okay, and I do believe he's trying, but I don't think that this is just going to end overnight. But everybody has their own opinion. And then after the 7-month incursion with this whole thing, it's like, we don't know what's actually happening here. We will follow it. But, it's unfortunate that it doesn't sound like they got very far in there at all. And now the way that they wrote that, it just looks like creative writing, like somebody's creating a story on how it's happening. All right. And then let's go to the next one. And this is wild. So many of you have actually emailed me stuff from the new Nostradamus many times. Every time he comes out with a different prediction, I usually get, I don't know, probably 10 or 20 emails. I'm sure Dex in your inbox too. This new Nostradamus, he saw this event happening. And it's kind of wild that so many people are paying attention to this because this event is something we talked about, but mainly a lot of people really kind of brushed over the ships crashing. Dex, do you want to talk about the new Nostradamus and his chilling prediction?
Well, yeah. So just days before it came true, he's a UK psychic. He's credited with forecasting the Trump's that attempt that happened on him, as well as other momentous events. But he had made a chilling prediction ahead of Monday's cargo ship collision in England. The Oracle revealed his persistent prophecy on, I think it was March 4th, they said. He said, I saw a ship or something in trouble, and I felt as if there would be an oil tanker problem coming up soon. He's known as the prophet of doom. It said that the ship of some sort was in trouble, and I think he went on to say it would be an oil tanker and have some sort of environmental type problem with it, which is what actually is happening. This was a oil tanker. It was carrying 18,000 tons of jet fuel, and the other ship crashed into it, causing the ignition and the fire and the destruction and sinking basically of the ship.
Now, I mean, he didn't give an exact time frame, and I'm sure that some, especially skeptics, look at this and they go, well, yeah, it's kind of like those people that do crowd work and they're like, is there somebody out here with a family member with a name that starts with an A? Oh, Adam, yes, that's exactly what I was thinking. And they have an issue with their something right around leg. Yes, leg. Yes, leg. It's like, those guys are totally fake. Certain people, and we've done polls on our show too, about just how many people believe that some people are in tune with things that happen. Most people believe that anything psychic related, including myself, if it's, it's something that I don't personally mess with. Other people that do it, I don't hate on people that do like tarot cards and things like that. But I always had a thing about not like going to psychics and things like that. If you are a psychic, don't be offended. It's just a personal choice of mine. Under my belief system, it can get into some dark areas, especially, who knows, on the other end of it, the person could be tapping into stuff. I never, mess with Ouija boards and things like that. But a lot of people actually do have a belief. Even some of the skeptics that I've talked to do have this kind of thing where they believe this is happening. And a lot of that too, a lot of the skeptics are kind of coming over because now they are finding scientific evidence that there are connections. And even there was a new study that I think they're doing a documentary on about how some of the children knew exactly what their moms were thinking. The children were actually, seeing things, basically seeing what their parents were about to say, or, these kind of things. And they had them separated and they do all these tests. So again, knowing that many people, just like many people believe there is something up above us, that there's probably UFOs, and most people believe in some sort of ghosts and spirits, a lot of people believe in these predictions. Now, I think that predicting from my angle is a lot of patterns. I see a lot of patterns in the news, and I can make predictions based on what I think is going to happen, because I think that, the three-letter agencies, CIA, and all of these agencies, they use the same playbook often. Like it's very easy. So I don't have a crystal ball. I don't claim to ever predict any events or say on the 18th there's going to be some horrible event. But there has been some really freaky ones, like that other gentleman who predicted, like this one, they say he predicted the attempt on Donald. The other guy, his YouTube video was out there, and he said that he even saw it going by his, ear or whatever. That one was wild. That guy now is pretty big. After that prediction, a lot of people follow him. I'm not so closely following this new Nostradamus guy, but when you do see things like this happening, one thing I thought of when this ship crashed into the other ship is I thought, man, this is probably a bigger deal than that they're making it, right? They also arrested the Russian captain, and I said, maybe that's a possible Fantastic Freddy. Like, it just so happens this ship careens into it. Personally, if I was driving a ship, no matter what side I'm on, if it's an oil tanker or jet fuel, I know I'm not going to hit that damn thing because it's going to blow up and possibly take my life. So did he do it on purpose? They are implying that. And if he did, what if this ship was hacked or controlled? Much like what people think of the Baltimore Bridge collapse with that ship. It just randomly, the power turned off. There's been a lot of these kind of ship events where it could have been avoidable. It should have been avoidable. It absolutely looked like it could have been avoided, but it's not. So what the heck is going on here? Is this a bigger thing than what they're saying? I think so. But what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below. Do you get what I mean? Like, with this kind of event, they immediately implied that they were looking at this Russian guy like this was some sort of attack or some sort of event, but they didn't straight up say it.
Well, yeah, and they immediately also said they weren't ruling out foul play, so they were going to leave it open for that as an option. So as opposed to just saying, oh, it was clearly an accident, there was weather related, there was fog, there was, whatever excuse, could have actually caused a collision. They said, well, we still suspect it could be foul play. So.
Yeah. And again, what do you guys think? Have you been following this? I mean, the fact that he's labeled a psychic, a lot of people will be turned off by that. They call him the prophet of doom. He has some pretty other interesting prophecies as well, if that's your thing. There's a link to this article, which links to all of his channels and things like that there, if you want to go check them out. If you have a prediction, go to Marfia Hot Tips. There's an anonymous tip thing there. So just use it. If you have a prediction of something, you can always use that for that as well. I would love to hear what you guys are thinking. One thing I do know is when I was younger, when I was 18, I've told this too many times, but the reason I got the doomsday apocalypse tattoo on my wrist is because I literally could not stop having dreams about the end of the world. And if you fast forward, it was over a decade, probably a decade and a half before I ever did anything like this. And I really just for 2 years straight, I had the same sort of dreams, ending, sirens, bombing, Earth getting torn up by an asteroid, everything going all white. Everybody that does dreams says it means this and means that, but some of them were very eerily just so realistic. It was scary. So, is that why that I have a somewhat obsession over this kind of stuff? Like if I wasn't doing this, I would be on the other end. I mean, that's what it's what I think is going to happen. It's my gut, but I still don't think, I'm not a psychic by any means. But I do think some of us are in tune with stuff like this. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below. And then Tammy Lee, thank you for your support yesterday. Says, we live in crazy times, but this family sure makes it easier to go through it. Love to all of you. Thanks, Adam, Dex, and Mods. And then Craig Alicious says, love the late shows. Makes it much easier for us Aussies to catch a live. Best channel on YouTube, boys. Hey, thank you, Craig Alicious. And again, I was just thinking of you yesterday, actually. I shouted you out yesterday. That's funny. But the late shows are not on purpose. Unfortunately, I do hate that because we have a lot of Australians and New Zealanders that watch. I don't know how you guys found my channel, but a lot of you have found it. But the late show is due to Dennis. I actually met a woman today on my way home. I stopped by a Hobby Lobby to get paintbrushes and met a very nice lady in line. So if you're watching tonight, it was a wonderful experience meeting you. But yeah, it's not on purpose. I've been trying to go on earlier, and I wonder for you Aussies, how early would it have to be for it to come back around where it was good for you guys again? Because it's odd how many Australians have found this channel. And then before we move on, make sure to go check out Jace. This is our recommendation as far as if you don't have medicine on lockdown, especially antibiotics. I mean, you've probably seen in almost every end of the world movie and every zombie show that there's always some sort of emergency that happens and they need antibiotics and they have to go to someplace. Well, the saddest thing about all of that zombie stuff and end of the world stuff is that is actually a very real situation. And it has happened during North Carolina, during Katrina, and it's pretty much happened during every major disaster in the country, including some of the big fires where somebody has a huge injury or burn or something and they get infected and they need antibiotics. So this is something that is a really simple service. You can do it from your phone or your tablet or your computer, and you can talk to a board certified doctor and get yourself a kit shipped right to your door with all the most commonly prescribed antibiotics. Now, remember, antibiotics are mostly made, 90% of all antibiotics come from China. So if you are one to think that we are on the cusp with the war with China, like I am, then I would highly recommend getting this stuff before we disconnect. Also, as far as you're talking to a board certified doctor, so while you're there, you can actually add things in like albuterol, emergency inhalers. You can add in, of course, the stuff that Joe Rogan took that CNN made fun of him for and lied about him. So there's lots of other stuff that you can add on. Go to marfooglenews.com/Jace. Use the code MARF. You're going to get a discount and you're going to help our channel at the same time. It is a very, very helpful thing, mostly for you to share our stuff out. That's the main thing we ask. We don't ask you to do anything other than that, but if you do, we do thank you and do appreciate any support that we get. All right, and then Dex, China backs Iran in nuclear talks.
Well, Beijing is positioning themselves to be the power broker here, but they did have a meeting today, Friday. China and Russia joined Iran and urging an end to the Western sanctions after the President Trump had called this week for the nuclear talks with Tehran. I think we recall maybe about 2 weeks ago Putin was trying to say, hey, I'll be the one that can negotiate or get you a conversation with Iran. And then Now we've got China obviously jockeying for this position as well. So, it's interesting to watch this power play between Russia and China. Even though they're allies, there's certainly some tension there amongst different things. Whether it's who's going to be the negotiator or the one who meets with Trump, but after the talks in Beijing with Deputy Foreign Minister of Russia and Iran to discuss Iran's nuclear program, the Chinese government said the three countries had agreed that all parties should abandon sanctions and pressures of threat of force. In other words, they are supporting Iran, and they don't think that we should be taking their oil money away. They don't think that Israel should be threatening to launch strikes against their nuclear facilities, which you kind of would expect them to say. They're all allies, right?
Exactly. I mean, as far as China has taken notes straight out of the U.S.'s books. They're trying to be that power player in media, in movies, in politics, in land grabs, in, of course, loans to smaller countries, in jumping in and trying to be the peacemaker. All of these things, they're taking direct notes. Infiltration, though, it's scary that I think that they match the U.S. in infiltration. Now, the U.S. has infiltrated a lot of places. It looks like China is better at that from a lot of perspectives, but realistically, the U.S. and NSA, I mean, think about how we could have accessed any phone in the world, right? Our intelligence agencies could literally get into the French president's phone and check his camera. I don't know if China was able to do that back then, but now it looks like they have caught up and they've infiltrated so many different things. Again, Tom Cotton's book, 7 Things You Can't Say About China, great book to read. I know that people have mixed opinions about Tom Cotton. I certainly did. But after reading that book, I actually got a lot out of it. There are a lot of things that he said that I said, this looked obvious to me. The infiltration into everything. I mean, media, even movies. I see it. I see movies like The Meg. Did you get it? Did you guys watch either The Meg 1 or 2 or even Moonfall, right? I was pumped about Moonfall. It was like an end of the world movie. But of course, in that and in many other movies, they make like the Chinese, the China, basically the technologically more advanced country that comes and saves the day. In fact, the U.S. had to get help and had to borrow Chinese technology to get this thing done in the movie. That's not a coincidence. That's because there's major investors in all of these movies. So major that they have been able to cut out things that make America look good. I mean, in a couple cases they didn't, like in Spider-Man, the newest one, they tried to ask them to edit out the Statue of Liberty from the end of the movie. Anybody that's watched the end of that movie knows that's the last like 33 minutes or something. It's like a huge chunk of it. That's a super long movie. But still, over half an hour is their battle at the Statue of Liberty. They said it was too patriotic. And I believe they ended up pulling their funding because they didn't want any part of it if that was in it. Imagine that same battle scene without the Statue of Liberty. It'd be pretty silly. They are superheroes and they can float and fly and stuff, but they would have nothing to even, web to. And then, Top Gun, they tried to get the Taiwan patch off the back of the jacket and things like that. That's the stuff we see. You know how much power and sway they have when they have a professional wrestler that weighs 320 pounds begging, going, I am so sorry, I love you. And then you see the same ones that kowtow to China do super successful in not only movies, but everything else. If you don't kowtow to them, well, you're shadow banned on most things. You're blocked. You're this. You're that, and you get attacked. It's crazy how many just weird things happen once you start talking about it. But yeah, so again with this, I don't think it's a coincidence, and it's going to go even farther in the future. Taiwan's president labels China a foreign hostile force and ramps up security measures, citing infiltration. Well, look at that. I've been talking about it all week about this and about, South Korea, how the president who got arrested said, it's so crazy. He declared martial law. He said, There's Chinese infiltrating our country, and they're infiltrated into our government, and they are sympathetic to North Korea, and they're trying to impeach my friends, and they're trying to get all these things. Now they've made him look crazy. He's still not the president. It's not like they were like, oh, it's okay. We went to court and we went to trial and found that you weren't wrong, and we put you back in place. Nope, there's a new president there. South Korea, one of our major allies, had their president ripped out of the presidential palace and put in straight up jail. And that's because his claim was that China was infiltrating. I've been talking about this, and the infiltration that's been going on is insane. But now Taiwan's president labels China a foreign hostile force and ramps up these security measures. Dex, do you want to talk about how this is? I mean, obviously they're a hostile force to Taiwan, but they specifically say they're infiltrating, like they're getting on the inside.
Yeah, so they've had a string of spying cases and other infiltrations, but the new measure announced on a Thursday included a controversial proposal to restore a military court system in Taiwan, which under martial law until the late 1980s. The president, Lai Ching-te, made the announcement after convening a high-level national security meeting. It prompted an almost immediate reaction from Beijing, which called Lai a destroyer of across-strait peace. So, and the creator of crisis, who is punishing Taiwan towards the, quote, perilous brink of war. So, yeah, China's not happy about it, but he is going all out after them now, and I guess shifting or at least increasing that narrative about what they're up to.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and we know almost nothing about Lei Ching-ying, but because he just kind of got popped in. But I do wonder, how much of what the last president said is true. I am on the side of believing him. Stephen Click says your dreams were the Lord telling you these things so you would do what you're doing now. I've had a lot of people tell me that over the years, just saying that that's why I had them, and I believe you could be right. I still don't think I'm a psychic though, but I do believe it did shape who I am. That's for sure. But yeah, I mean, lucid dreams are pretty crazy. Not everybody dreams. So, when we did our dream shows with Jacob, one thing I learned is that there's a lot of people that do not dream at all. And I could see being a skeptic about dreams if you don't have any. But, and then, or if you have dreams and they're very stereotypical, like naked in front of class or, falling, things like that. But my dreams have always been just super lucid, super descript, and I remember them. Especially those 2 years of dreams were just, it was just one after another. It was every night for years. Have you ever had a period of your life where you had that happen? Let me know in the comments down below. Dex, go ahead.
Yeah, hey, real quick, I just want to just a sort of a semi PSA for all you folks in the South. We've got these really nasty storms that are about to come through. They actually started, I think, in Texas. They've had the winds so bad they're knocking tractor trailers over. It's so bad. The prediction is so bad for tornadoes throughout the South that they're actually opening shelters where I live. Like, they're telling people, if you live in a mobile home or if you live in a house that's not sturdy, come to the police department, come to the school, come to this location. They're opening shelters all over because they're predicting this horrific event. So for those of you that live in this area or anywhere, across the Southeast, don't ignore it. At least pay attention to it because it sounds like it's going to be pretty severe. 100-mile-per-hour winds and 100 million people in the path.
Well, and I just saw a post by Trinity last week talking about one of these local counties in it. I can't even remember the area, but essentially this county did a major change, and the change was something I thought was really smart. I did retweet it. Essentially, the county said, we are no longer going to do just a blanket siren system for any kind of storm. We're going to do it only in the area where it is needed, right? And I thought, wow, it's 2025 and they're just figuring that out. And this is why. Essentially, they said that people were desensitized to them. So say I can't really use any. I'm not familiar with the South down there, but so say in this city, you're getting an alarm, but it's 3 cities over that the storm's in. If you get that siren 15 times and never have a storm, you're not going to pay attention to the damn thing. I said it was basically as useful as a car alarm, right? How many people actually go out and check if the cars are fine? Most people check their keychain to see if it's their car, press lock a couple times, but they never go look. Like, no one checks that anymore. Maybe a couple of you do, but most people don't even pay attention to car alarms. Heck, I can't even remember the last time car alarms went off. They don't even like do what they used to do, because cars are harder to steal. But as far as that goes, it's like they were desensitized, and they changed it so if there is a storm and you hear a siren, that it's going to be that thing. Well, I hope that more counties pick that up, because something like this, people will hear it and they won't respond. Most of the perishings and the people that perish from these things is because of being unprepared, or just frankly ignoring what the authorities have said about it, or said, hey, I can tough it out. Especially with some of the crazier storms in the last couple of years, especially if you believe that maybe somebody's fiddling, then I would highly recommend paying attention to it. Even if they don't make a big deal out of it, if they do make a big deal out of it, just pay attention and take stock of what you have. Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, that siren scenario sounds odd to me, because like here it's always been that way. It's always been like if you hear it, it's in your neighborhood or it's in your area. Like in our county, it's not county-wide. It's like whatever part of the county is being hit at the time. If it's a tornado, if that siren goes off, there's a tornado.
And it was a major county.
Yeah.
So counties have multiple cities.
Yeah.
Like in my county, there's like 6, 7.
Oh yeah, we have multiple cities in our county, but like the sirens here, if you hear them, it's not. You could be on the other end of the county and there may be nothing going on, but the sirens won't go off over there. They'll go off over here.
Yeah, exactly.
At least
that's how it should be.
That's how it should be. It's how it always been. I'm kind of shocked that it wouldn't be that way, because it didn't seem like it's that difficult for the technology to be smart about it.
You can go to my Twitter this last week. Go see you can go look at what it is. I thought it was crazy. Weird. We don't even have much. Most of our sirens got taken out here in Seattle. We're going to have a problem. You have sirens along the ocean. Many of the ocean places I've gone to interview people and things, they have, tsunami sirens, but a lot of other things happen. They've taken most of those sirens out. So, I'm not used to monthly sirens and things like some of the coastline cities are. If I heard one, I would probably think it was the end of the world, because here we just don't have them. I mean, we do have some, but they're not operational. Like I know there's one in like Greenwood that is still physically there, but it's not hooked up to anything.
Yeah, these weather people that are predicting are saying that this could be like the super outbreak of 2011, which was one of the largest, costliest ones ever for tornadoes across the Midwest and through the South. But yeah, this is going all the way down to Florida, all the way through Atlanta. I mean, that's the area where I'm familiar with, but I know everybody pretty much west of Georgia and probably north a little too is going to get hit with this. It's pretty big. Yeah,
and I've never experienced it. Have you, Dex? I think I've asked you this before. Have you seen a tornado?
Oh yeah, I've been in them. I've ridden one out. I've watched one out an open door, flip the bleachers at the high school football field, twist them up in the air, the visitor bleachers, and dump them in the middle of the field. Yeah, I've been through a few.
So I won't bore everybody that's watched forever, but like I told you, my Southern teacher, Ben, this guy that was a teacher in 9th grade, he was in charge when we had the Nisqually earthquake. It was like a 6.3. They think they might have put it up to 6.7. It was a big one. The roads were going like this. He ran out of our class when the earthquake happened, screaming. Literally screaming. Just ran out in front of huge 15-foot windows, ran down the street. Everybody, if it was an emergency, other people would have left. I was a smart ass and laughing through it and said, ride the wave, dude. I was actually terrified. But as like the class clown, I was trying to make everybody laugh and people weren't. I remember this one girl was just crying her eyes out. TV fell down, all of that. When Ben came back, he said, I've dealt with tornadoes my whole life. I've been through really crazy stuff. He goes, in an earthquake, I didn't know what to do. He didn't tell us get under our tables. He didn't do anything. He just ran out like that. But that shows you if there's so many ports to the West Coast and there's so many ports to now the South. There's people on the West Coast that are used to earthquakes and things that have now ported to places with tornadoes. They don't know what to do. That's another bad situation. And then you've got people that have been around tornadoes. Like you come out here and experience earthquakes. Maybe you might not be as experienced as somebody who, has been here or lived in California for any amount of time. Like we've had several earthquakes. It's not like, oh, but if I experience a tornado, I'd probably do the same thing. I'd probably just like run out and get away from everything. So, that's another thing is just how many people have had to move because of inflation and because of housing costs. I really wonder how that affects the actual data of how many people get killed and how many people die in these disasters because they just don't know what to do in them. So a big part of prep too is knowing what to do. You constantly have to re-look at everything. Now, Beijing is fuming over the BlackRock's Panama port deal with C.K. Hutchinson. Now, our president said, oh, well, this is really good. He used we. We're taking the power back, and we have BlackRock investing in this thing. I don't know if Donald knows like what people think of BlackRock, and most of his constituency like does not like this massive company that has as much money as a country. In fact, it has more money than all of the other countries combined other than the US and China. So take every other country in the world besides US and China, and that's how much money BlackRock has. And that they are doing this. So Dex, now China's pissed off about this, but that is one thing I haven't made too many connections with. How much is BlackRock involved in China? You actually don't see that. Is that the two sides of the coin?
Here's something I'm kind of thinking about. And this deal didn't just go down. It wasn't like somebody picked up the phone after the third week of January and said, hey, we got to go down there and buy that port. A deal like that takes time. Okay, lawyers and negotiations and opportunities. And, it's rare that a deal like that would go down in 30 days, in 2 months. It was probably in the works. It's probably been in the works for a while. It's been in discussions. Financial people have known about it. And the reason I'm saying that is, in my mind, I'm betting that Trump knew when he first started talking about, hey, we're going to take back Panama Canal, he knew that deal was in the works. He didn't have any control over it because that deal was a financial deal. It's Black taking a big chunk of money and buying this, investment off of another large company that owned it, that was based out of Hong Kong, China owned. So I think he sort of saw that coming, and it's like, I'm going to latch onto this notion that we're taking back the Panama Canal, because then when this does come about, he can say, see, look what we did. That's just my prediction. I could be totally wrong. Maybe they did swoop in 30 days, brokered a deal to buy it. I highly doubt it. I suspect it took a lot longer.
See, I'm on the other end of the spectrum. I think this happened all of a sudden, and maybe Trump just doesn't know about BlackRock.
No, because he does know about them. And because when he did say we're buying it, he never said the company name. He never would say the name. Every time he spoke about it, and even after the deal went through, he said, we're buying it and investors have bought it. He never say their name. So I think he knows not that the brand is not good for his audience, right? So that's what leads me to believe that, that either if he was in on it, he was in on it. If he wasn't in on it, he knew about it. And if he knew about it, he used it as an opportunistic message. And that's just my take on it. I have no proof of it. I just sort of look at it. And it's not being against him or against the idea. I think it's a good idea for America to have more involvement in that canal. It's very strategic to us. I always thought it was horrible that China was running it. But But yeah, we'll have to see. But obviously, China's really upset over it. They wanted that control. It's everything they do. If you look at what they've been doing with the Belt and Road and with all the investments they made in every port around the globe, like anything having anything to do with shipping, they want to have their hands in control over it. So for them to have lost this deal or to have this company sell out to the BlackRock led consortium, yeah, I can see why they're pissed.
So here's I asked Grok, and who knows if it's right, but what they say is that they actually used a relatively rapid process, and it says that the CK Hutchinson and BlackRock, that they described the transaction as the result of a rapid, discrete, but competitive process in which numerous bids and expressions of interest were received in a very short amount of time. So, and implies that the negotiations and bidding process did not span an extended period, potentially taking weeks or a few months rather than years.
Yeah, a few months is still longer than the time he's been announcing this.
Yeah, so you're saying that maybe it was going on before
he knew. Yeah, he knew the bidding was going down. He probably heard about it because they put the bids out. They were trying to sell. They wanted to raise money. They wanted to see who was going to buy, who was going to come up. BlackRock probably came along, and it wasn't just that they're taking their money. It's BlackRock led a consortium, so they basically led a whole bunch of investors that brought money together to say we want to buy this, right? So that takes time. I mean, look how long it took Elon to get a consortium of money together to buy Twitter. Even though he has the money, he still went and got a bunch of funds from a lot of people. It took a couple of months. Actually, it took 3 months for him to get that deal to broker it all the way through. So I suspect that when we started hearing Trump talk about we're taking Panama Canal, he knew this deal was going down.
Sign Digger says he is part of those with BlackRock. Honestly, we're seeing two sides of the coin.
Wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, and we're seeing two different parties. Like, a lot of people believe right now that this is a battle between two different sets of billionaires. Over the last 4 years, it was like, why isn't there anybody fighting this? Like, why wasn't there anybody on the other side of the aisle that just said, screw this, I don't care if I get canceled, and then putting their money into it? When we did see that, it was big news. I mean, like, because Elon ended up doing that. Essentially, he did that by buying X and saying, screw this, and changing this over and taking a chunk of the social media stuff. But now it's like we're seeing an entirely new side. We're seeing a lot of videos come out about the other billionaires, the quiet billionaires that were quiet throughout all of these cultural changes. And I wonder if these guys had an opposite belief to what was going on in the last 4 years, where the hell was their voice at? Dex, you've said like they didn't want to have business deals fall through or have things happen. But it's like, I bet all of these guys meet up, right? And
look, he's a businessman, and he runs in the financial circle because he uses the financial money to do his business deals. And he even tells you that he doesn't take his money; he takes other people's money. He makes money off of OTP, or OPT, other people's money. OPM, sorry, that's his acronym he uses for it. It's to go to these financiers, to go to the BlackRocks, to go to the Chases or the others, and get their money and use it on projects, and then make money off of the deal. That's his MO. So he loves all those guys. He may not be totally in bed with them. He may be in bed with them. Who knows? But he certainly works with them and appreciates them, because that is the lifeblood of the business deals he's done all his life.
Yep. Sounds like we, the consumer, are extremely screwed again. Somebody said, Snoot too, said the wind is so loud. So I'm guessing you're in that storm area. And then Priscilla F says BlackRock is part of evil. Highway says, like Covfefe, pretend it's spontaneous and say, look, what a great smart leader I am. It would seem that way, but 5 minutes of research will show you the truth. Somebody's talking about how the Panama Canal is drying up or something. I don't know. Never heard of that yet. Alphabet wouldn't be happy with the takeover bid and deal. That's true too. Yeah, it's BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street, and then it's like Blackstone and things like Apollo Management Group. It's no secret. Yeah, most of them have stock in them. Yeah. Well, as far as this goes, I wonder where China sits in that. I haven't heard of many deals connecting those two, but who knows? Somebody like what's his face on X. Gosh, I can't remember his name. He's always finding something new. Him and Whitney Webb are always constantly finding connections back to that company. And then Dex, let's talk about Thomas Campbell, a NASA physicist who developed a certain theory. Do you want to go over that?
Yeah, so may not be for all, but it's rather interesting. We always talk about, and I know a lot of people talk about the whole theory that you live in a matrix. Well, Thomas Campbell is a former NASA physicist who developed a theory on everything unifying quantum physics and consciousness, and his model explains out-of-body experiences, remote viewing, and dreams. So you can watch the interview if you want. I think it was on Rogan, but this tweet stream, if you want the highlights, is kind of interesting because this thread sort of puts together the primary parts. He goes, he thinks that we're living in a virtual reality. He says, think of something like the World of Warcraft. Your body is just an avatar, like an elf in a game. The real player is your consciousness, existing outside of the virtual world. Your consciousness logs in and logs out to play, and that's when it logs out is when you perish, and I guess you log back in under a new body, or under a new avatar, as he's referring it. He says your individual unit of consciousness, that's what you are, that we're all interconnected. We are an IUOC, as he calls it, an individual unit of consciousness, but you're also part of a larger consciousness system, which he refers to as the source. And he says, like a single cell in a body, you have your own experiences, but you also are contributing to the evolution of a whole organism, whatever this collective notion of consciousnesses are. And when you perish, obviously that's when your consciousness, it doesn't, but it's immortal. It goes on and it moves on to the next thing. But you enter a transition phase where all of your memories fade and your experiences are integrated into your IUOC, as he referred to it. And then you log in again without the memories for a new experience, sort of playing a different avatar, which then contributes back to that collective consciousness. So he goes on to explain, how that can explain the fact that, we think about multi-dimensions and moving, out of body experiences and remote viewing and dreams. Really fascinating. Again, not for everybody. I know it kind of clashes with, even my own beliefs on, religion and Christianity. And that's fine, but it's always interesting to see what some other people theorize. And that's all they are, is theories. There's nothing proven here.
And it goes on to say, like, why do we play, right? The larger consciousness system wants to evolve. It evolves by reducing entropy. To do that, to split into individual units of consciousness, each life is a chance to lower entropy by making better choices as you evolve. Now, one thing about this is, like, we think, oh, well, you're going in and doing 80, 90 years, 96 years, and what kind of person would log in for 96 years of the same game? But it's the way that we think of time, right? Well, if you look at what has now happened, now Elon is saying very soon you'll be able to upload your brain and save it like a video game. There was a story that came out last year that we covered, which was essentially, they say instead of prison in the future, they may hook up to your Neuralink and just add in 15 years of time. So your body will only age 5 minutes. You sit down in a chair, they hook up to Neuralink, and just like the Matrix, they would insert 15 years of artificial memories that you basically sat in a room for 15 entire years and had time to think of your all your stuff. Or they even used an example that they would repeat your crime to you for 15 years straight. And in your brain, you would actually perceive it as 15 real years. You would come out on the reform side in just 5 minutes. But think about that in the terms of this theory. They could say you go into this game and time runs differently. As if, like in a video game, you play GTA or something, and the game day, they have night and day cycles, right? It's going a 24-hour cycle, but the 24-hour cycle actually goes in about an hour. So you'll go from day to night in half an hour, and you're playing at nighttime now, right? Well, think about it, and it's going super fast. Every second is a minute in the game. Well, in this case, think about in the theory of things, you could potentially be doing the same with our life. And that when you look back, it's kind of weird because you think about it and you go, gosh, time has just really flown by. It is a funky theory, but it is quite wild. And this is what a lot of majority of mainstream are leaning towards. I guess this is another way, too, to try to get away from, I don't know, maybe admitting that there may be a God. And even if there wasn't, that's the thing, though. If there was this system, would that not also mean that there is a creator and a God? And no matter how much you say that it's virtual reality or it's this or that, how can you say that there's no creator in that case? Somebody created this, and then in that realm, who created that? And then that realm, who created that? And we're supposed to believe with our super advanced society that all of this came out of nothing, and it just popped out of nothingness. And that nothingness was literally just nothing. And then it went boom, and then all of a sudden we have something. That's what I have never gotten about. So say if you have a view of nothing, how does it go from nothing? Who created the nothing? That's what makes everybody scratch their brain. Just who created the nothing? Nothing created nothing? It doesn't make sense to me.
Well, if you modify what he says and you get rid of the reincarnation part where you come back and play the game over and over again and you just stick with and you change conscious with soul, then you're not that far off from, where you believe, where the, say, Christianity or other religions have God creating people, and people have their, one play at the game, so to speak, one life on earth, and then you leave and your soul leaves and you go off to eternity, right? So yeah, it's interesting how they theorize these different things, and you also have to wonder: is there any motive behind it, or is it just straight up intellect trying to shine in their own way? Because if there's a motive behind it, I go down that path of there's been this ongoing push to sort of to take away the values and take away the notion of Christianity. And that's always been frustrating.
Here's a kind of a crazy way to think about it. You know how almost all of the different religions, doesn't matter what part of the world, a lot of the religions and the ancient textbooks, they all have certain events. Like they all have a version of the flood. They all have a version of something possibly hitting or a version of this. And you think about it in being an devil's advocate here, looking at this, and you go, well, if it was, you got into, you go into one thing after another, then one time you were here during the flood, and then you got put into this other body during the flood, and now you have information about this flood that goes on into the next life or whatever, right? Just trying to see this out and see, like, how could that even be, how could that actually be something, right? I don't know. It sounds like a lot of people are actually leaning towards all of this, and the simulation theory, Elon has talked a lot about it. It has picked up a lot of steam in the last few years. That's what I've noticed from covering it. And I wonder how much of that is because people like Elon did it and a lot of people just kind of jump on the bandwagon, or how much of it is because it is a very logical way to put it in today's technology. That's the thing, though. This what would not make sense 30 years ago, but now that we have tech like this starts making sense. And I think, what about in 40 or 50 years from now when our technology is super crazy? What is going to make sense then, right? What made sense 1,000 years ago? What made sense 2,000 years ago? It's kind of a wild thought. Thank you. Colby Wilson says, mad love and respect for the Marfoogle team and mods. We love you because all were just another brick in the wall. That's awesome. Sorry. That's creepy. Phone said GPS lost. I asked for directions earlier. That's just creepy. So it's been on this whole time, like after you arrived. Like, creepy. All right. And then before we move on, make sure to go check out EMP Shield. This is our recommendation as far as if you want to protect yourself against an EMP strike from any adversary. And this means all of the adversaries have some sort of way that they could try to do this to us, knock down our grid, and have 90% of us perish in the first year. It's a scary thought, but it is a possibility. And if you want to protect your vehicles, your cars, trucks, motorcycles, boats, pretty much anything that runs, including generators, then you would want to have one of these on it. In the car versions and the truck versions, this is super easy. 10 minutes and it's in your car, and that means your car or truck is going to run, no matter how high-tech it is, after an EMP or even a Carrington-level event from the sun. The great part about this is it protects not only against the Carrington level event in the EMP, but it can also even protect your home against lightning and other things. Again, this is the same company that's outfitting agencies like DHS and DoD, helping hardening our grid. But right now, we are nowhere close to that being done. So if you want to protect yourself and protect your family or the people that you love and care about, then you definitely want to have one of these on their vehicle. That way they'll be able to get home to you, or you'll be able to get home to them, or you'll be able to get out to bug out or get home to bug in. Go to marfooglenews.com/EMP, $50 off per device, and that stacks on top of all sales. That's been grandfathered in. We were there before they had these, crazy contracts with DHS and DoD and all of these other things. So again, marfooglenews.com/EMP, code MARF. It helps us out. It prepares yourself for two of the most talked about disasters. And of course, you're helping independent media at the same time. Again, thank you. And then, by the way, thank you, WizGen. It says you're awesome at Colby Wilson. Thank you, Ryan Alter. Awesoming and rhyming. And then you, Rockman, not calling you a rock man. You know what I mean, Randy Man. That's awesome. Thank you, guys. And then Jammer, thank you, Sign Digger. We've got Fermi Paradox. We've got Tammy Driver in the house, Mike Guyver, Ian Jones. We have Danny P, Patrix421, and Zadizia, Karen Bishop, Harold, and so many awesome people in the chat. Thank you, Jammer, especially. Thank you for modding tonight. Bobby Sue, thank you for modding tonight. Thank you guys for making it. All right, and then, oh my God, they are being forced to evacuate on the wing. That is, of course, the voice of Matt Wallace via X, right? Oh my God. But this is really, really crazy. So apparently the situation called for them not going down a slide, but going out the emergency exit because the other side of the plane was on fire, and they all had to get out, physically out onto the wing. At one point, they're bringing like painting ladders, like civilian ladders out, going, hey, I'll hold it while you get down. This is nuts. This looks so unprofessional, and this is American Airlines. I thought it was like at least Southwest, but no, American Airlines, which is, I don't know. I guess I always think the good reputation is Alaska Airlines. That's who I'm thinking about has the really good reputation. I haven't flown American, so I don't know, but I think I've heard bad things about them too. Not sure though. But bringing out straight up ladders, like you would think that they had a plan for this kind of event with a wing fire like that. All these different plane events. Dex, isn't that crazy? Like, shouldn't they have like a insert with the slide down the wing too? I mean, you would think
I
they're
think
doing
those
this because they
ladders
had to.
I think those are the ladders they use like on the lower portion of the plane, like mechanical ladders. They got wheels on them. But if you look to the left, there is one of those drivable ladders that has a height adjuster on it, unless that's fixed to the terminal. But that's what they need. And a lot of these terminals, when you pull into, if they're fixed, then they can't necessarily, bring a ladder out to the side of a wing like you could in an open field airport, like say Burbank is the last one I can think of that you walk out on the tarmac, right? So you literally walk up a ladder to get into the plane, or up a flight of stairs. So, but yeah, it's just the whole thing. It was an emergency. I mean, like this, they were basically turned the plane around, landed quickly. In the process, they knew the engine was something was wrong with it, and as they're landing, the engine bursts into flames. They're rolling over and getting as close to the building as possible, and everybody is like, all right, let's start getting out of this thing. What I'm surprised though is at the back of the plane you didn't see the doors open with the inflatables on them, at least on the far back and the far front, on the opposite side, so that people could exit that way. I mean, I know there's exits on the wings, that's normal, but there's also a on the wing, when you open those wing doors, there is an inflatable that can pop out there too. But I don't know if it's a slide as much as it's a raft. But I know on the doors they all have those slides.
By the way, great comments about the blood moon. Yes, I totally forgot. So we went. Yeah, that was last night, right? Yeah. So brought the whole family, kept the kids up. They wanted to see it, and we went out. We were lucky enough to have a relatively clear night. Like there was clouds, but none of it stopped us from seeing it because the moon was like above us. By the time it started, did you watch the eclipse last night, or could you see it from where you were? Yeah, I know
No,
you're not.
I wouldn't. I was sound asleep. Unfortunately, I had to get up early.
It was very cool. So, here are some of the images from that. It was pretty spectacular, actually. It's very rare that I can get my 4 and 5-year-old to really be, into something, especially when it was like, it took an hour to really get to where it was, and we're just kind of looking at the moon. But they were enthralled by it too. I mean, it was really cool. It wasn't what it never got like a straight up ring. Like I remember the last one was really kind of trippy because it just completely disappeared. This one on my camera, I actually have a time lapse, which it was so shaky. I was trying to keep it still. I want to like put it in an editing app to where it crops it and stabilizes it, because the time lapse was better at seeing that it just completely disappeared to the camera. And the camera actually saw more detail than the human eye, more color, more everything, because of how these cell phone cameras work. But it legitimately looks like it just disappears. So yeah, the blood moon, a lot of people had a lot of significance into this. Yesterday was a crazy day. As we talked about yesterday, there was a lot of really big stories, especially war, ratcheting up. And it just so happened it was a blood moon eclipse. This one, gosh, doesn't that look like the frickin' Death Star? Man. But yeah, and where is that the shadow was going sideways like that? Must be... I wonder where that was taken from. Ours, the shadow went up the moon. And then a great comment there said, Terminator is the prequel to The Matrix. I just talked about that last week. When I heard that, I was like, what? And then you look into it, go down that rabbit hole. It's pretty crazy. And then that was Colby Wilson that said that. Did anyone see the blood lunar eclipse last night? It was awesome. I agree. And then Raquel R says, I love these topics. Nice to see what others' opinions on these kind of things are. And Digital Revolution says, escape the monopoly money matrix worldwide modern slavery system with physical silver and ISO gold. I'm still not. I'm super late to the crypto party, but I do agree on the gold part. And then Fish is coming to Portland on 420. Rasta Bear. Perfect matching there. Rasta Bear says Fish. I don't know if I've mentioned this, but my sister had a group that followed Fish all around the country, stay at my grandma's house. We all lived at my grandma's when I was a kid. And my grandma surprisingly let like probably 10 hippies stay in our backyard. And they were like the coolest people I ever met. When I was a kid, I thought they were super cool. Don't know what I would think about them now, but yeah. Fish. Do people still follow Fish like that? Like all around the country? Dex, do you know about Fish? PHISH?
Oh yeah, I know about them. I've never followed them around, or the dead.
Well, it was crazy. I remember one of the guys when I was really little. It was like he was missing a thumb, and he would do that thumb trick, but it was real. He'd go, "Look, I got my thumb," and then I looked at it and I got scared because I had that trick done. I'm like, yeah, whatever. And then I looked and he had an actual nub, and it scared the crap out of me. I'm like, oh my gosh, he actually took his thumb off. It's kind of funny actually, but and then there was another one. Oh, Neil Nelson, thank you. And a lot of people, make sure to thank Neil Nelson, just gifted out 10 badges. Thank you. That's really appreciated. Mainframe, thank you. Flip Flop Joe, fish is the best thing on earth. Yeah, they followed it every year, and like clockwork, it was like around that time of the year they came and stayed in our backyard. My sister was definitely a 420 friend, and still to this day loves gnomes in her garden and little stuff. You guys have talked to her. Her screen name's Liberty or something like that. Forget what her screen name is. She might be here right now. But yeah, she can tell you the story a lot better than I can. Anyways, but yeah, this whole kind of week has been filled with all sorts of just crazy stuff. So we'll continue to cover it. And if you join us it's Friday. Over the weekend, if anything big happens, make sure to tune in to Marfoogle News. That's where I usually do any kind of cell phone breaking news stuff. But join us here on Monday. And if you want to join us for the Shoutro, you can. All you have to do is stay in the chat and you'll be ported right over. Make sure to go check out your awesome mods over at marfooglenews.com/friends. You got lots of great people over there. You got everybody from Bones to Wages and everybody in between, like Ilea and, of course, Trinity, I mentioned earlier. Go check out her channel. She's always doing some awesome live streams, digging deep into all sorts of great stuff. And then thank you, Colby Wilson. Thank you, Kat. Says, remember to hit like. Well, thank you. And then Colby, I think you and Neil are top two. And right behind that, I believe it is Stephen Click and Craig Alicious. Thank you, guys. Dex, thank you so much for your service today. I appreciate you.
Much love. Great job, brother.
All right, you guys, it's time for the shoutro. It's not an outro. It's not a shout out. It's a shoutro. Too long.